This weekend I'll be analyzing Trump's chart with the Aditya circle. Right now I just want to touch bases with everyone on a few questions that people have been asking. There are certain questions that many people are asking, and so instead of trying to reply to everyone, and I know these questions are going to be asked by people in the future, I just wanted to cover a couple things right now. Okay. First, I'm really happy to see how excited people are about the Adityas, that people are thinking about them, they're excited, I can feel it, and they're asking questions that show their excitement about this old symbology of Vedic astrology. And that's really what the goal of this series of videos is. The goal of this series of videos is not to predict what's going to happen in the United States. That's incendiary. As people know, I don't usually spend a lot of time in mundane predictions on YouTube. Every once in a while a little bit, but it's not like my gig. I'm just using that as a topic. My goal is to get people excited about the Adityas. And so I'm really glad to see that that's already happening after really just looking at one chart so far. So, one of the questions is, how do I calculate my Adityas? Okay. Is there a place to calculate Adityas online? No, there's not. At some point I'll make that. I'm not sure when I'll get around to it, but it's not hard to do. Okay. All you need to do is get your tropical chart from a Western astrology program, from vaultoftheheavens.com, from anywhere. Get your tropical chart. And the first Aditya is before the vernal equinox. It's the 30 degrees before the vernal equinox. So Data is the first Aditya before the vernal equinox right here. Okay? And the tropical zodiac, and only in the tropical zodiac, okay, Pisces is the sign before the spring, equinox. So all you have to do is say, okay, Pisces is Aditya number 1, Data. And then just go around the zodiac. So Pisces, after Pisces is Aries. Aries becomes Aditya number 2, Aryama. Okay? And just go around the zodiac. And then what's very, very, very important you do right now is you forget that Aries and Taurus and Gemini are even there. Okay? A lot of people are asking me questions showing they're trying to integrate, well, what does it mean because of the fact that, this sign is there, and yeah, Venus is with Saturn in the Data Aditya, and is with Rahu in the Data Aditya, and Ernst didn't like that, but in the tropical zodiac, Venus is exalted. What do I mean? What's going to happen? How does that affect that? We have to stop thinking about that right now, okay? What I'm going to be sharing in this series of videos is really just the tip of the iceberg of the Adityas, okay? We're stepping into such a large world of symbology, such a large world of mythology, and you'll see I'm saying this planet has affinity for this sign. Why? Or for this Aditya. Why? Because mythologically, their stories, they're explaining these, connections that are going on, between the Adityas and different parts of the Adityas and the planets and everything. But in this series of videos, I'm not going to be sitting there explaining all that laboriously, completely, and thoroughly, okay? I'm just showing you the Adityas. I'm saying this is what the symbol represents. And you can take that symbol and look, when you look at charts, look. If I say, the Twashta Aditya is in paternal law, look at charts. I have a chart of somebody who has a very, very damaged Twashta Aditya. Okay? It's the worst sign in their chart with several starved planets. Okay? Which means planets that can't offer fulfillment, that indicate pain. This person was raised under severe paternal law. Where father's word was law, and any infringement on that law was met with abuse. Okay? Another person has many good planets in this Aditya. Wealth planets, I feel good what I'm doing planets, building nice combinations in that Aditya, like a Jupiter-Moon conjunction with maybe one other planet. But Jupiter-Moon, it's a nice combination. And this person follows the career of their father, who followed the career of their grandfather, who followed the career of their great-grandfather, who followed the career of their great-great-grandfather. So it's like we have this lineage of, yeah, they're doing the same work. You know, she works in the office that her great-grandfather founded in an old building. You know, that they've had this family dental practice there forever. What's really interesting, she's the first female in the family to become a dentist. None of her brothers became the dentist. She's the one who had the nicest paternal law karma to help her embrace the beneficial things of her family lineage, of her paternal lineage, of her father specifically. So the Adityas, you can just look and see how do these laws Ernst was mentioning, the quality that this Aditya is, you know, providing. Is it coming out in a pure way, or is it coming out in a twisted way? If it's coming out in a twisted way, it's because the planets are afflicted, and you need to judge that on your own right now. Okay? I judge it with the Lajitati avasthas. People have asked me, what are Lajitati avasthas? Okay. Lajitati avasthas, in my opinion, is the single most important technique in Vedic astrology. Okay? I've taught many, many classes on Vedic astrology over the last 20-some years, and I've never taught the same class. You know, I don't have 3 courses that I teach over and over again to a different batch of students. I teach a course, and then I teach a different course, and then I teach a different course. There's some courses I wasn't satisfied, I threw them away, and I sometimes created a course that was very different from that, but that replaced the need for the other course, and sometimes I didn't. With the Lajitati avasthas, I have so far taught 3 classes approaching 100 to 110 videos, each of which deal with the Lajitati avasthas in a completely different way. Each of those courses, a person can take, learn that course, and just off one of those courses become an extremely competent and helpful astrologer to provide information that other astrologers are simply missing. And the reason I'm saying that is to illustrate how important the Lajitati avasthas are. No, I don't go back and teach 3 courses on this or that, you know, because it's not important enough. But this is how important the Lajitati avasthas are. If people say, what can I do to become a better astrologer than I am right now? Number one thing I think anyone can do is learn the Lajitati avasthas. The first time I taught a course, it was a very basic course on those, what some old astrologers said, who'd been doing astrology, you know, since before I was born, they said, wow, this is the missing link of astrology. This is what we've always been waiting for. It will clear up more confusion in the charts that you look at than any other technique you can do, in my opinion, after everything I've tried to learn and tried and tested. Lajitati avasthas are based on natural relationships of planets. The very basic idea, there's 6 avasthas, which means a condition. So it's these 6 conditions of the planet. Okay? Lajita means shamed, etc. So Lajitati means the shamed, etc. Avasthas means conditions. So Lajitati avasthas are literally the shamed and other conditions of the planets. Okay? Now, just really quickly, the 2 very basic forms of a Lajitati avasthas is a planet is starved when it's with an enemy, aspected by an enemy, in the sign of an enemy, or with Saturn. That planet's going to be hungry, you're going to have a hard time fulfilling it, you're going to try to fulfill it in ways that don't work and end up being more hungry. Okay? The other most common one is a planet is delighted. Planet is delighted when it's with a friend, in a friend's house, or with Jupiter. Okay? That's 70% of your avasthas are going to be one of those 2. The other ones are more involved, very, very important. And in my Lajitati avasthas courses, I explain the results of every one of these possibilities. Moon, stars, Mercury. What does this mean in many, many contexts? Okay? is critically important. In my opinion, Logitati avasthas are the single most important thing we can learn about our charts to make our lives work better. That's what I used to say about Rahu and Ketu. I used to say, if you want your life to work better, you need to grasp your Rahu and Ketus. You do. But you will not grasp your Rahus and Ketus thoroughly. You will not be equipped to improve upon your Rahu and Ketus if you do not grasp your Logitati avasthas. Okay? Because they're really showing how our consciousness is working, and whether our consciousness is working on a level that's going to work for us or not, and what we need to do to simply think, behave, believe, and act in a way that our lives can work. Okay? That's what Logitati avasthas are, and that's what I use as my number one go-to of, all right, what's going on in this chart? Very, very important, okay? Logitati avasthas are found in 2 Vedic astrology books that I found of all the old ancient books I've read. One is in Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra in the Avasthas chapter, and the other is in a book called Bhava Kutahalam. It's a very uncommon book. It doesn't have anything extra on the avasthas as is in Brihat Parashara. It's their sutras. It's 10 sutras or so on these avasthas. And no, reading those sutras, you're not going to get the whole world of knowledge and information. That's why most people don't even remember reading about the Logitati avasthas. And nobody has been using them unless I've taught them to use them. But if you spend years of your life thinking about the meaning of what he's saying, you're unlocking a world of amazing astrology. I've been working on Logitati avasthas since 2004, for 20 years. I found sort of a neat way to use them in 2004. And I don't know, was it 10 years ago or so? I just made my biggest advances with astrology through greater understandings of the Logitati avasthas, which I've taught in those courses. Okay? That's what Logitati avasthas are. So, you know how to calculate your Adityas now? Apply the symbolism to your chart. See if you can connect and relate to that symbolism. And get a feel for the avasthas. Right now, you just want to see, oh yeah, I see this is working, or Ernst is crazy, I don't see this working in my charts, my people's charts. Okay? And just get a feel for it. Don't try to figure more things out right now, except just, okay, is this symbology coming to life in the charts that I'm looking at? Is it happening? Is it there? Can I find the thread of, yeah, I can see the support of Data or the unhealthy support of Data if it's an afflicted sign or afflicted Aditya. Like I mentioned, what I'm covering in this series of reading charts is just the tip of the iceberg of the Adityas. It's not even the part above the water. It's just the part that's reflecting sunlight on the tip of the iceberg, okay? When you start investing in the Adityas, you're going to invest in a huge world of astrology. It doesn't even just stop at the Adityas. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Adityas as the symbols, and I'm going to be, in these videos, the Adityas and the Rishi. I'm not even going to, I might dip into a little bit, but I'm not going to talk much about the other 5 beings that relate to the Adityas. I'll have those in the back of my mind, but I won't be bringing them out as visibly, okay? That's one aspect. The other aspect, what's really interesting about Brihat Parashara, is that when he tells us how to calculate Vargas, and even how other books calculate Vargas, most of them say, okay, do this calculation and you'll find the Lord of the Varga, that it's in the Varga of Mars, in the Varga of Mercury. And what's it called? Panchasiddhantaka, which is the astronomy book of Varaha Mihira, the most famous Indian astrologer who was an Rishi of all time, from about 500 AD, he says that Aries sign, and then he goes, starts here, and that Mars Rashi, Mars Navamsha, Mars Drakana, and Mars Trimsamsha start there as well. He doesn't say Aries starts here and the Trimsamsha of Aries starts here and the Navamsha of Aries starts here. He says Mars. The old astrologers paid a lot of attention to the lords, the planetary lords of the Vargas, more than the signs. And then what's really most interesting, Brihat Parashara, he gives deities for all the Vargas. So for instance, the Adityas, he doesn't give the Adityas, but the Adityas are essentially deities of these 30-degree arcs. And we chop those 30-degree arcs into Vargas, and in Brihat Parashara we get different deities relevant to all of those parts. So the deities of the Hor are either the sun or the moon. The deities of the Trimsamsha are one of the 5 elemental planets, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, or Saturn. Those are the deities. They're not even planetary lords, they're the deities, okay? And so those 2 Vargas have planets as deities. The Navamsha has human, Rakshasa, or Devas as deities. These 3 different levels of conscious beings as your deities to your Navamsha. And this is a wealth of symbology that Vedic astrologers have not been tapping into. That's, again, the most authentic Vedic astrology because it's all about the symbols that are actually found in the Vedas, okay, and the Puranic literature that followed the Vedas. So one of the things that will be happening over the next 2 years as I get more into teaching the Adityas is we'll be getting into all that other symbology, which is part of this original, or old, I don't even want to say original, this older Hindu-centered symbology. So the same way that we can't read the whole chart just on the Rasi chart, we also need to look at the deities that are going on in the other Vargas to flesh out the subtle differences between any 2 horoscopes. And we can actually do that with deities. And that's also something that's a huge work in progress. Okay, we're talking about a lot of deities when we consider how many Vargas we got, and they all have different Vargas. The Dasamsha Vargas are the Lord of the 10 directions. Wow. A lot of cool, deities there. Okay? One of the deities of the Saptamsha is ghee and sugar syrup. It's sounds like breakfast, So all these are very deep symbols that in exploring and using, we'll be able to grasp parts and understandings of life and people and events that we might not as easily see with other symbology. And it's not here to replace that symbology. It's a whole nother level, a whole nother layer of symbology. And it's something that can be used and appreciated all by itself without any knowledge of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, or whatever. Okay? So for now, you just want to realize we're on the very first step, which is, all right, let me see these Adityas in action. All right, I see them in action, but let me try it in my life and in the charts of people and see if that's sort of correlating. And then if it is, then you might want to really dive into it. But it's a whole rich world of symbology that has been sadly neglected. I'm sure there's people in India who use all this, but they're not teaching astrology to the public, that's for sure. There's many, many, many things in India that aren't being taught to the public in India. They're just kept between family members. And many, many of these family traditions disappeared and died out during the reign, the English rule of India, sadly, So we have this is a beautiful part of it that we have a chance to dive into. All right, so don't think, okay, it's in that Aditya and it's with Saturn, but it's in this dignity in the tropical chart, or it's in this dignity in the sidereal chart, or even it's in this nakshatra. Just let all that go right now. And the brain doesn't want to do that. The brain wants to put everything into the framework of what it knows. It wants to do that because the brain wants order. Okay? Order creates a sense of well-being, security, and I can do this. Okay? And I'm asking everyone to just drop all need for order. Drop all need for your mind knowing what it knows. and just say, okay, I just want to explore this. No preconceptions. No, I don't need to fit it into my established framework right now. Just soak it up, get the information you can, and over time, it'll fall into your framework, and you're going to find very magical and surprising ways. But there's absolutely no rush for that. And my concern is people will try to do that too much, and in doing that, lose sight of the Adityas, which is what we have to embrace right now. And then we can kind of fit that into the scheme. So we need to approach all this with a mind that's not, burdened by the need to have any sense of order. Like when you first learn astrology, you just start learning the signs of the Zodiac, and you don't know there's nakshatras and that there's Vargas and somehow they relate to each other. You're just like, oh, that's really cool. Wow, this person's an Aries or a Taurus. Wow, it totally makes sense. We want to go back to that state right now, okay? And just use the Adityas as the Adityas, okay? In the course, when I teach it, the full course, the real course, instead of just this, kind of lets me show you the Adityas, the first part will be about the Adityas, and then the second part of the course will start connecting some relative things that we learned about tropical signs to see how that interweaves and works with the Adityas. But it's not time for that in these videos. So that's been the number one of the main questions people have asked, and that's all I wanted to say on that for now, because that's all you need to know. Okay, this is a very big iceberg that we want to ski the surface of and dive underneath, and we need to do it, in a systematic way, essentially. Okay, and that means for me, step one is to say, hey, let's see these Adityas. Let's see what they reveal about the people ruling the United States right now, about our economy and whatever. Let's see how these Adityas are manifesting life around us. That's our first step. If we don't succeed in that, there's no point thinking about anything else, All right, so that's the step one that I'm focused on, and what my goal is in this first exposure of the Adityas. Okay, thank you.